What if Tensura the Jewel of Tempest by KatarinaTempest on Wattpad. Rimuru was taking a break after the entire orc invasion incident and decided to take a stroll through the forest. While walking along, he runs into a monster that was run out of their home by the orcs and lost their entire family to the attack. With nowhere to call home and no family to go back to, Rimuru accepts the monster into the new and-growing town as his adopted daughter. The story will follow the main story beats of the light novel, but events will be changed due to a close bond forming between Rimuru and the new monster. The bond will be explored along with the world around the two of them, giving more depth to the characters and allowing them to move outside of the main story's narrative. Chapter 4 Summer Events. Rimuru's POV. As the days turned into weeks, I noticed several changes in how Katarina interacted with the world around her. She was getting accustomed to speaking with everyone in the town, and even going out of her way to help those in need as well. With each person she talked to and each problem she helped to solve, her popularity was steadily growing. I was no longer the only person people looked to for help, and I was grateful for that as it meant my workload slowly lessened. Well, that is what I would like to say anyway. The fact was that my workload was increasing instead. With the orcs having arrived in the town, there were more projects than ever being taken on, and the town was quickly turning into a full-blown city. While I was stuck doing paperwork and drawing up plans for future developments, Katarina was heading to several of the work sites to make sure everything was running smoothly. There were some work sites she refused to visit, however, and those were the ones being managed by Geld and the orcs. While she was fine around them when I was close by, she refused to see them while alone. I was sure the reason for this was her lingering fear of them, however I wanted to find a way that she could get over this fear. With the orcs now living in the city, it wasn't something she could avoid forever. With this in mind, I headed over to the workshops to find her, knowing that her daily training with Karob would be coming to an end soon. While I walked through the town, I took note of the new buildings being built at impossible speeds and stopped to thank the workers for all their hard work. As I neared the workshop, I decided to let Katarina know that I was coming so that she wouldn't be surprised at my arrival. "Hey Kat, I'm headed that way. I wanted to talk to you about something. I'm almost done with the piece I am working on, so I will try to finish it up before you get here," she responded. Upon arriving at the workshop, I noticed it was as noisy as always, if not more so, with how many apprentices were now working on the floor to fill the orders for tools and weapons. Entering the back room where Karobi's personal workspace was, I give a nod to him before moving towards Katarina, who was, indeed, almost done with a magisteel-infused longsword. The longsword was used commonly by the dwarves' military, and although it was a simple design, the magisteel core made them much harder to perfect. "Look at you. You have improved by leaps and bounds since the last time I saw your work." I was honestly impressed. "Thanks, Dad." Katarina was cheerful as always. I haven't visited the workshop to see her work for a week, and in that time she has certainly made great progress in her skill level. I started to wonder if she would be able to make a sword completely out of magisteel some point soon, but even now she was able to make the equivalent of rare equipment easily. She was quickly improving her sword skills as well, so I was pleasantly surprised by her aptitude for learning new skills so rapidly. "So, what did you want to talk to me about?" Katarina asked, curiosity shining in her eyes. About that. I want you to talk with Geld, the orc leader. I'm hoping that after you hear their story you might understand them a little more. With the orcs now making up a sizable portion of our population here in the city, I didn't want Katarina to have to fear for her safety while wandering the streets. With that thought, I decided the best way for her to get over her fear of the orcs is to talk to them directly. While it might not instantly relieve her fear, it would at least let her understand why they attacked and why I accepted them into the alliance along with the lizardmen. Katarina's POV. Geez, here I was doing good with avoiding the orcs entirely, and here Dad was asking me to interact with the leader of them. While I know I shouldn't hold on to the past as much as I have, it has been hard to let go of the fear I still feel when seeing them. Every time I see an orc around town, my hands start to shake involuntarily and my heart races as I try to leave the area. I knew there was no reason to fear them anymore rationally, but emotions aren't logical. They were allies with us and have caused no harm to anyone since joining. If you are there with me, I can try to speak with them. I agreed to the request with a single condition that I knew would be accepted. Of course, I will be right beside you. There was the acceptance of the request I needed, and with my time up here I started to clean up the workspace. Thanking Karob for his help today, I ended up following Dad out of the building, and towards the plaza. While we walked, I ran over everything I already knew about the orcs, as I wasn't shy about asking for information after them. Most of the time I ended up talking with Shuna and Xian in the hot springs, and one night's conversation went to the orcs as I tried to understand why they accepted the alliance so readily. The responses I got were unsatisfactory for me, though, as they simply stated that Dad forgave them, so they did as well. I realized there was just far too much respect for Dad's decisions for the Kijin to go against him on major issues. While I did respect him, the primal instincts that kept me alive all that time I was alone was something that never went away with my evolution. While we walked through the town, I noticed a new building was put together while I was secluded away in the workshop for the past 2 hours. With each new day, and each trip into the city, I noticed buildings being made according to the plans that were drawn up. I had to marvel at the work speed and strength of the orcs, along with their work ethic, as they finished projects at a rapid pace that blew my mind. Reaching the main building that everyone came to eat at, I saw a lone orc sitting at one of the tables away from everyone else. A quick glance and I could tell it wasn't due to wanting to be alone, but that he was relaxing. I didn't realize that this was Geld waiting for us to arrive, as I had only seen him a couple times in passing. With our food in hand, Dad started to lead the way over to the table where Geld was sitting, and with only a moment of hesitation I started to move after him. I focused on taking deep breaths to try and calm my nerves as we approached, but it was obvious I was battling against myself due to my hands shaking ever so softly. With a soft hand placed on my shoulder, I looked over to see Dad smiling at me in reassurance, and I was finally able to get my emotions under control for the time being. "Hey Geld, sorry to keep you waiting. This is Katarina, my daughter." Dad introduced us to each other and sat down to start eating. "Sorry we haven't met before now." With such a weak greeting, I couldn't help but wonder what Geld thought of me as I sat down opposite him, making sure there was a decent amount of distance between us. Feeling a hand wrapping around my own, I felt some of the tension dissipate from my body from the simple act. What surprised me the most, though, was that Geld instantly apologized once I was settled into my chair. "No, I'm sorry for all the pain and suffering you have endured at the hands of my people," Geld sincerely said. Keeping an eye on Geld's soul, I could tell that he was extremely sorry for everything the orcs had done in the past, but also that he was proud to be able to make a difference here. With the introductions out of the way, Geld started to explain what led up to the events of the forest invasion. I decided to listen patiently so that I could hear the full story, and with each new thing told to me, I couldn't help but start to feel sorry for them. With the orcs facing extinction, they did the only thing that was possible for their people to survive. With the lands they called home bordering several demon lords, it was impossible for them to move into those lands and secure their future, which only left the forest where we live. With the storm dragon gone, the forest was unprotected, and the orcs thought that it would give them the best chance of survival. Due to the intervention of an unknown demon lord, things were taken out of their hands as they were consumed by the skill-starved and forced to fight for food, lest they die of hunger. Understanding the full story, I felt tears sliding down my cheeks as Geld finished his tale about how Dad offered them a chance to live without the fear of dying of starvation. The world was survival of the strongest, and for that reason alone I couldn't fault the reasoning behind the invasion of the forest that led to so many deaths. Finally understanding why everything happened, I could feel my fear of the orcs slowly disappearing, taken away by the flow of my tears as I felt for the orcs' cause even while mourning the loss of so many. Wiping the tears away, I took a moment to calm down before speaking up. I could already tell that Dad knew my decision to trust the orcs, even as he trusted them, but I still had to say it out loud. Giving a brief overview of the events that led me to the city to Geld so that he would understand my side as well, I finally accept the decision to accept the orcs into our home. I am sorry for avoiding you and your people for so long. While I knew there were things out of your control, I didn't realize just how complicated the situation was. I might be a little late to say this, but welcome home. Blinking away tears as they started to flow once more, I realized just how lucky I was to be found and saved by Dad as well. Geld for his part simply nodded and thanked me for the welcome. I decided to ask if he needed any help with the projects he was working on, thinking it would be a good way to learn more about the orcs and how they have changed since I last saw them. Dad of course endorsed the idea wholeheartedly, and Geld was happy to accept my offer. I wasn't sure how I would feel when I was out there working with him, but I also didn't want to let my fears hold me back anymore. Rimuru's Pav, you have taken a big step forward today, Kat. By overcoming your fear like this, I am sure you will become all the stronger for it. I was proud of her, proud of the fact she could welcome the orcs sincerely even if there was lingering doubt in her mind. With the serious conversations out of the way, I smile as I think about what the afternoon will hold for us. I had already planned out a fun little event just outside of the town, and it was now time to head that direction. Great! Now that this is settled, I need your help with something, Kat. I said with all the seriousness I could muster. Help with what? Well, there is a new weapon that I need help testing, and I think you are just the person for the job. I was unable to keep the playfulness from my voice as I spoke this time. And what type of mischievous weapon would this be? Katarina warily asked. Darn it, of course she saw right through me. That skill of hers is annoying when it comes to trying to keep a secret or your real feelings hidden. There was nothing for it. I would just have to keep my mouth shut until we were ready. On top of her being able to read me so easily, her vocabulary has been expanded thanks to all the books she has been reading as well. It started with her being curious about the paperwork I always have to work on and thinking she could help me get through it, and so I agreed to teach her how to read. I would have done so anyway, but I figured it would be nice to get something out of it if possible. It had progressed to the point where she is reading several books every day using thought acceleration and learning new things with each book she finishes. I ended up asking Geld to build a library in our house just so she could store all the books that have been made, and continue to be made as well. For Katarina's part, she simply has an insatiable curiosity for anything new. I couldn't really blame her for wanting to read the books either, as they were all from my own world, containing information she would never find any other way. Most of the topics that she had been reading on are for practical use, but a few fictional books have started to be mixed into them as well. Bringing myself back to the present, I remembered why I decided to get all my work done this morning, instead of during the afternoon like normal. Katarina has been focusing so much on improving herself that she hasn't had fun for some time. Working constantly wasn't good for one's health, so I wanted to show her how much fun could be had to help break up the monotonous daily activities. This naturally wasn't fueled by my own desire to have fun and relax a little. It was completely for Katarina's benefit, as she deserves plenty of time to play as the child she is. You will just have to wait and find out. I'm not telling you until we get to the testing location. With a little smirk, I start to lead the way back onto the busy streets. You are so mean, Dad. Katarina let out a cute little pout with her outburst. Well, you won't have to wait long. We are headed outside of the city. Gobta and several of the goblin riders were already waiting for us in a clearing just outside the city for us to show up. I didn't want to keep them waiting, so I forged on through the streets while pulling Katarina along. I slowed down once we reached the forest itself so that we could enjoy the shade and natural beauty of the forest around us for a moment, Katarina seeming to enjoy the peace immensely. The large trees offered a dense shade towards the ground that could fend off even the harshest of summer suns and had a beauty all to themselves. The forest was a reminder of where every race that joined us came from, their roots, while the city represented how much we had accomplished already. Here, you might want this. I handed over a water gun while saying this, a smile on my lips. And this is the weapon? Katarina curiously looked at it. Yup, now get ready because it's us versus them. Without another word, I charged forward towards the clearing, ready to ambush the hobgoblins who were waiting there. Within moments, chaos erupted around us and water was flying in all directions. Katarina quickly picked up the purpose of the water gun and followed my lead in the sneak attack, which quickly turned into a free-for-all. Over the next few hours, shouts and laughing filled the air around us, and Katarina seemed quite happy. Seeing her have fun, I felt a smile tug on my lips even as we were both completely soaked to the bone. Can slimes even get soaked to the bone? With a good portion of the afternoon being spent blasting each other with water, I felt like this was a great way to cool off during the hot summer days that showed up only recently. Well, should we head back? I would hate to miss dinner after all. Thank you for this. Katarina began to hug me tightly before we could even move back towards home. Hey now, what is this all about? You know I'm not going anywhere. I start brushing my hand through her hair, thinking that she might just need some comfort. Thank you for letting me have fun like this. I was so focused on improving that I never had any free time for stuff like this. I want to protect everything we have here, and I didn't want to slack on training to have a little fun. Came Katarina's answer. It wasn't what I was expecting, but I was glad she got to relax and have some fun. Well, in that case, why don't we go swimming next week? We can go with some of the others and have fun all day long. I offered, wanting to see her bright smile again. That sounds amazing, although you might need to teach me how to swim. With a soft blush on her cheeks, she steps back out of the hug she had me in and faced back home. With plans for next week decided on, we headed back home, both exhausted and hungry from playing so hard. I marked today as one of the best days in my life here so far and was happy I got to spend it with my daughter. She was everything I never knew I needed, and certainly knew how to add some chaos into my daily life. Katarina's Pav. 1 week later, waking up early and quickly getting dressed, I burst into Dad's room shouting for him to get up. It was time for us to go swimming and I was ready to get the day started. I might have woken up a little too early though, it was still almost pitch dark outside after all. After the first water gun fight I got dragged into, I made sure to set some time aside each day to do something I loved. I realized after that afternoon that while training was good, if you couldn't enjoy your time to the fullest, then there was little meaning in anything you did at all. Cat, go back to sleep. We will head out when the sun has actually come up. Dad sleepily said, even though I knew he didn't need sleep in the first place. I knew there was no way I was going back to sleep now, so I decided to head down to the living room instead. I started a fictional book the other day and I thought that I could read it without accelerating my thoughts to help pass the time. The book was about a female assassin who was named the best in her kingdom, although this title was only official in the underworld of the cities, naturally. With the action and magic my attention was fully caught, and I was determined to finish the series so I could see how everything ended. I never knew that simple words on paper could paint such a detailed and wonderful world. The book had fully drawn me into its pages, letting me see and hear everything as if I was there with the characters I was reading about. An hour later Dad showed up in the living room, now awake and ready to start the day. He insisted that we eat breakfast before anything else for some reason. When I asked about it, he said it was to keep a certain someone from running off and not eating a proper breakfast. I have no idea who he was talking about, it couldn't have been me. I wasn't the only person who was interested in swimming, so we had to wait for everyone to gather before we could leave. I was wondering if we could just fly to the lake Dad had picked out, but with Shuna, Shion, Hakuro, and Gobta coming with us that wasn't an option. Soka was coming as well, but she could fly thanks to being a dragon newt. I couldn't complain about the mode of transportation, though, as I got to ride on Ranga, and he is so fluffy. I adored Ranga's fluffiness and snuggled into it every chance I got when I wasn't doing something. It made an amazing place to nap. I was currently in my cat form, and Dad was in his slime form, so that we could fit more passengers on Ranga. I think Dad was surprised when I turned back into my original form, with the only change being I was slightly bigger than before. I never really had a need to transform back before now, but snuggled into Ranga's fur in this form might just make me change my mind and transform more often. I didn't think anyone would mind either considering how often Dad changed between slime and human forms. The moment we reached the lake, trouble started. Unfortunately, Shion got it into her head that she should make some lunch for Dad, and the food, if it could be called that, looked like it came straight from hell itself. Shuna was already laying out some edible food for everyone, so I decided to nip this whole thing in the bud while I could. I normally wasn't around when Shion tried something like this, so it was my first time seeing just how truly awful her creations were. Shion, can I ask a favor of you? If you want to become an amazing chef, then it's important you do one specific thing when making food. I managed to catch her before she made it to Dad, thankfully. Really, what is it? Please tell me. Shion turned towards me, food in hand. Well, it's quite simple. All you need to do is taste the food you make. It's not only to make sure the food tastes good, but also to make sure there is no poison in it. You wouldn't want to accidentally poison one of us, right? I said this with an innocent smile that could disarm almost anyone. I could only cross my fingers and hope that my words worked. I wasn't sure if they would, as Shion stood there looking confused for a minute before moving again. Her face brightened in pure joy a moment later as she nodded rapidly, and I knew that my wordplay had worked, or at least I hoped so. You were right, Katarina. I do need to check for poisons. Shion was clearly excited. Well, at least something got through to her, Dad said softly. With Shion taking a bite of her own food for the first time in her entire time cooking, we all watched on expectantly. I was not disappointed when she fell to the ground, poisoned. I turned the rest of Shion's dish into ash by using Hell Flare, without a moment of hesitation. With the disaster averted, I turned back towards where Shuna was setting up lunch and moved to help her in the preparations as if nothing happened. I noticed Dad's relieved smile as he avoided eating the goop, and I even got a nod of approval from him, which made the already great day perfect. Well then, who wants some food? I was all cheery and ready to get started with this trip now that the crisis had been averted. I do. Why don't we all eat before we head off into the water? Dad said, ignoring Xian's plight as well. With Dad and I leading by example, everyone sat down and began to eat the food Shuna brought. I enjoyed the relaxing atmosphere of the quiet lakeshore spot, finding the quietness comforting to the soul. The sound of birds in the forest edge, and the soft splashing of fish out in the distance amplified the peacefulness of the nature surrounding us. The mood wasn't long to last though, as Xian woke up once we were finished eating, and for some reason she was happy that she poisoned herself. I realized at that point I would never understand Xian's way of thinking, so I gave up trying completely. At least one good thing came from this trip, and that was Xian promised to personally test every one of her dishes before serving them to another living being. I could only hope that this would lead to an improvement in her overall cooking, or that she dropped cooking completely. Everyone had already changed into their swimsuit of choice by this point, so we didn't have to waste any more time before jumping into the water once we finished eating. Dad was wearing a white and blue striped one-piece that he didn't seem to like, Shuna and Xian wore bikinis in pink and purple respectively, and Soka wore a white one-piece with flower designs on it. I really liked Shuna's and Xian's swimsuits, but Dad refused to let me wear one like theirs. The reason I was given was that I was not old enough yet, which made no sense to me. I was instead wearing a black one-piece like Soka's that had a white cat design on it. Once I was finished eating, it didn't take long for me to be swimming in the water. I had gotten lessons on how to swim before we came here and realized I could use the skill, molecular manipulation, to help control my speed and stay afloat on top of the water. With everyone following me into the water, there was an impromptu competition for racing to the middle island of the lake. Dad wanted the sand there for something he was cooking up, and I would be lying if I said I wasn't interested. He wouldn't tell me what he had in mind, which frustrated me to no end. I had no way to make him tell me, and I didn't have a skill to read his thoughts either, so waiting was the only option available to me. With the race in full swing, my time for thinking about other things disappeared as I had to race to catch up with those who had already started to swim. I managed to come in third place during the race, which I considered good seeing as it was my first time going swimming. While swimming, we did run into a monster at the bottom of the lake, but it was friendly and Dad somehow made friends with it. After he promised that we would return at some point in the future, it happily sank back towards the bottom of the lake as we continued to splash around. The day passed too quickly for me while playing in the water and having so much fun. Dad did manage to confuse me when he expressed his surprise about my willingness to dive into water. It had something to do with cats not liking water in his previous world, I think. He didn't really explain it well, so I just told him I didn't really know what to tell him and left it be at that. I did find that I was reluctant to head back home after a day of fun like this, however, but we had to come back thanks to Dad's promise anyway. With the knowledge that we would be back at some point, I reluctantly dried myself off and prepared to leave. Climbing onto Ranga once more, I look back at the lake longingly before smiling as I remember all the fun we had and will have in the future. Transforming into a cat once more, I settle into place near Ranga's head and look towards home. With the wind drying everyone else off while we traveled, it wasn't long before everyone was dry once more. When reaching the city, we all headed off in different directions and I found myself back home with Dad, with dinner soon sitting in front of us. Third-person POV. As everyone settles in for the night, a peaceful quiet lays heavily over the city. With the star-filled sky watching over the forest, it seemed like the peace would last forever. The only disturbance was from that of Veldora himself, causing trouble per normal. No one knew where he was except for a single individual, and one more person was about to learn the truth during that very night. With Katarina slowly falling asleep in her own bed, dressed in simple black pajamas with slime decorations across the length of her shirt and pants, Great Sage and Veldora plotted to show her something like never before.